Hello to everyone, this is Gunther Steiner, this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back to your Sunday night with Speed City, and we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to bring on our guest. Very excited to have our guest. As said at the top of the show, one of our very first guests ever, way back in the day, one of my favorites, Conor Daly. Conor, welcome back to Speed City, man.
I appreciate it. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. Excited to talk to you, my friend.
Very much so.
I appreciate that.
When are you back in a car? That's all I care about.
Man, honestly, that's a good question. Life is definitely in a bit of a different spot. But if you would be able to see what's kind of gone on day to day over the last couple weeks since kind of filling in for Simon at Mid Ohio last minute, and then the NASCAR truck race, and then other things that are kind of going on behind the scenes, it's a lot. So, we'll see what happens. There's definitely more, that looks like it's going to be, it looks like it's going to happen at some point. Quite a diverse schedule potentially, but yeah, just trying to work on really 2024, honestly. Like that's kind of the main focus. Yeah. But this year will get busier, which is nice. And it's all just bonus time at this point for me. And yeah, you just got to take advantage of it.
I've got an idea, Conor. I've got an idea. I'm not your agent, but here's an idea. I interviewed, in fact, you might hear it on this broadcast. I interviewed Justin Marks the other day about their win. Because he's doing Trans Am with me or with us at the moment, and he's doing really well as well. But I asked him about the Van Gisbergen thing. So why not? Let's call Justin Marks up, get you a ride in his special project.
Well, I mean, honestly, I talk to Justin all the time. I have a lot of respect for Justin. I love what he's done.
Yeah.
He follows along in the month of May really closely as well. But that car, that's definitely like the Van Gisbergen thing is you're not going to see much of that. Like you had guys like Kimi Räikkönen in that seat. Like it would really take a guy like Shane who's used to driving big, heavy cars, to get in and be successful like that immediately. So, I would love to, but, I don't think I'm as big enough of a name as what they're looking for. But I am excited to see who they go with, for more races, because I think they've got some more ideas in the pipeline, which will be, which would be cool to see.
Well, we've got some tough questions for you tonight. One about Ricciardo, but I want to ask you, what about the Gears, the Maestro, SVG, throwing away a supercar race or two and doing the playoffs because he's now qualified?
I actually don't know how all those rules work. I don't think you can actually do that, but I'm not sure.
Well, if you win a race, you're through to the playoffs.
Yeah, technically, but I guess you could be right. I don't know how they work. I apparently had to declare for truck points the other day to try to do something there. I don't know how that system works.
Nor do I.
I'm sure if he wants to come back over, he'll be welcomed.
Hey, Conor, so you went up to Toronto to support the Michael Shank racing team. How was that?
Oh, it's good. I mean, that team's been, great to me. And obviously it's a tough situation with what's going on with Simon. That's his car. It's his seat.
Yeah.
It's his job. And whenever, he's ready, he's obviously going to be back in there. But that team, has to score points for that car. And, it's got to run, and they've got, a lot of connections to Tom Blomqvist, obviously, because he's, tested for them before and has got a lot of trophies for them in the sports car side. So I know they've definitely been talking to him about, the future in IndyCar and stuff like that. So it's, to get him experience in that was kind of, obviously that was kind of an obvious choice for them there. But I know Tom really well, and the team, have been. I just really enjoy working with those guys. And we only got to work together for a day, in Mid Ohio. So to work with Mike and Jim Meyer, I mean, those guys are true professionals, and that operation is one that I would love to do more with. But obviously, that's only going to happen. If Simon is still, out of the seat, but, it's kind of a day by day thing, right? So we'll see what happens, but love supporting those guys because it was a real treat to just get a very refreshing look at IndyCar driving again.
Well,
getting in a different scene, getting in a different car, and knowing that it can be very different and very good.
It's nice to see you getting those kind of veteran roles of coming in as a consultant and helping out. I mean, that's got to feel good.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not bad. I like to have a nice place to hang out and a good group to be on the radio with. So yeah, I mean, I'm a motor racing fan, at heart. So to be there, I couldn't stay for the race. That's too emotionally damaging. But I'll happily be there to support up until race day.
Talking of emotionally damaging, poor old Tom, you mentioned him. He is a good operator.
Oh,
and I just felt for him because he said, he was a really honest interview. He said, look, all I wanted out of this was time in the seat.
Just to
I got nothing.
Finish a race or, more than a lap.
We know he's good, but he just needs some seat time.
That was horrible.
Yeah. Awful.
Yeah, and honestly, that's just it's part of street course racing, right? Sometimes, sometimes you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. You're fighting for just inches, and one guy makes one mistake, and there's no room for error. It's just the wall. So it was a shame for him because honestly, I think the one thing that he really wanted to test was the physical limits. Like physically, these cars are the hardest to drive on the planet. So it's like for him, that was a big step up for him. From the physicality side. So I think that was something that he wanted to feel, all right, what are these really like over a full race distance? And so, I guess he'll just have to wait for another time to get that test.
Hey, speaking of that, what happened to Grosjean today? He was talking about had the wheel blasting out of his hands. That had happened to a couple. Anybody? Did you hear, Connor?
Well, I did see that, and I heard the radio message, and I mean, that's a very wild thing to say, but I mean, it absolutely can happen. The track right there in that specific corner, there's like a jump entering that corner. It's over a giant drain. And so that, like, the steering is so heavy in these cars without power steering, no assist or anything like that, that if you do happen to miss it, like, it absolutely can rip out of your hands. And that's kind of worst case scenario. So just kind of like one of the crazy difficult things about driving an IndyCar, honestly.
Yeah, it's interesting. And if there were one weak point or one point coming, because we know Grosjean's fully fit and all the rest of it, but it could be that heavier steering that he wouldn't be used to.
Yeah, but he's done so
he's been
good,
and
doing
it for so
started
long,
the year off. What, he had 2 P2 finishes, and then he's just fallen off a cliff. Connor, maybe you bring some of your consulting magic over there. No, just kidding.
I don't know if I'm qualified for that.
Hey,
you could read all sorts of things into that, but go ahead,
Connor. Before you came on, we broached the subject of Daniel Ricciardo, and just from your point of view, as a man who's been in and out of a race seat a fair few times, we all know Ricciardo's story. We've watched him become this ambassador, if you will. In fact, I had a quick chat with him in Miami. But what's your take on this move and who it benefits most?
Yeah, honestly, I actually just had a great chat with Daniel on Friday. We just caught up for a little bit. So I meant to text him after the whole, situation, and we had a good chat. I have a lot of respect for Daniel. So, and I also owe him a bottle of bourbon. So I told him I'd see him in Vegas, and I was going to give him a bottle of bourbon that I'd saved for him.
What could go wrong?
Exactly,
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
You, Daniel, bottle of bourbon, and a late night in Vegas.
I mean, sign us up, right? I'll be on vacation. So
Oh man,
yeah.
strike 3.
But man, that situation, going back to that situation is definitely the way I can describe it is very Red Bully. That's just kind of I've seen it before in my era. Coming through the stepping stone series, F3 and F2, a Red Bull driver was a dime a dozen. They'd be there, they'd be gone, they'd be cast out of the system if they weren't, winning everything at the immediate time. But as I look back on it, like, racing is such an interesting sport because Nyck De Vries has always been like good. Like, everyone's kind of regarded him as like a good driver, but Formula E, I don't think is really the place to judge that entirely. I would say, like, Formula E is a very competitive series. A lot of my friends race in Formula E, but it's so much slower than any open wheel series that we do, like,
slower than
the world.
Formula 3, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just so I don't know how you can really judge much from that. But then obviously he had the substitute role at Monza, I think, right? And he scored points right out the gate. But it just goes to show you that, like, you're only as good as your last race type thing. And when he put in that one performance, it's like, this is our guy. You know what I mean? Like, this is incredible. And we've seen that happen, I would say, a couple different times in maybe not Formula One, but certainly in IndyCar, but probably Formula One as well, where like you have one shining moment and then nothing else. Then it's like, well, this is probably going to be our guy. And then, honestly, as a driver, knowing the situation that I was in my career, where my results have been awful for 2 years, except for the Indy 500, and it's not because I forgot how to drive. Nyck De Vries didn't forget how to drive. No. You know what I mean? That car might be incredibly difficult to drive. Like, they've clearly, as a team, not been doing fantastic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I got in a different car immediately in IndyCar, and I was like, people consider IndyCar a spec series. It's very much not a spec series. You can definitely still do stuff, outside of the realm of what people think is spec. And Formula One is obviously very much not a spec series. And so, I don't like that. Purely because I'm a driver, and I wish drivers got more respect, because obviously, those teams aren't going anywhere, but drivers, they're just, they could be recycled. So very, very curious to see how Daniel does. I think everyone was pumped to see him back, but it's like weird how immediately like Nyck was just like cast out, and like I haven't seen anything from him. Like, I don't know, like the poor guy disappeared from the planet.
Did.
Like,
yeah.
It's crazy.
Hey, so what about when I started thinking about Daniel Ricciardo, and I was thinking, he was going to take a rest. He was going to sit back. He was going to sabbatical. He was going to reset his mind and all that. And really, he looks like a genius right now. Think about it, guys. He got to take a half a season off and do the reserve driver thing. And now
he
he's
also got paid a lot of money to take
yeah, no kidding.
I love that Conor brings it to that. I love it.
Well, quite rightly.
I know
hey, and Conor.
But let me finish.
Oh,
the point is that now he's got a half a season to. If all he has to really do is beat his teammate, which I know is a big, tall order, but it's the genius move, because especially now that Checo's having a real massive struggle, it could put him in the Red Bull seat again. I mean, this is it's kind of a perfect storm for Daniel. He looks like a genius.
Yeah, who knows, honestly. I mean, I had some people telling me wild rumors and thoughts today about, certain drivers going certain places, and it's just, I don't know. I have no idea what to make of the situation, other than, if he gets in and immediately, smacks up Tsunoda, and he's like fast, the fastest guy on that team, then maybe does Alpha Tauri have a complete swap of everyone? You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't think Daniel would want to stay in. Again, the reason he kind of is in the place that he's in is because, he's not been in a competitive car, essentially, and he's not been able to get the most out of himself as a driver, I would say, either. And, oddly enough, he's still the last guy who won for McLaren. But, it's just interesting. I think for him personally, I would be like, unless he gets that Red Bull seat, I don't know if he's super motivated to be, fighting for just points. You know what I mean? Like, the guy wants to win. The guy wants to compete for championships. So I'm very curious to see what happens. And I still think you have a guy like Alex Palou potentially in a Formula One conversation for either Alpha Tauri or McLaren as well.
Man, doesn't Alex look so strong right now? I mean, he looks as good as anybody has in IndyCar. He's pretty dominant right now. So yeah, that could throw it. But this could set Daniel up if he does good. If he smacks the note around, like Conor said, it could set him up for whatever crazy silliness could happen in the next few months.
Well, you notice I put the question to Conor as to who it benefits most, because I'm going to answer my own question now, because I think Helmut Marko is the one that benefits most, and Red Bull, which is they have now time to assess both Checo and Daniel, because you're right, he's not in a competitive car, so really all we're judging him against is Tsunoda, and we'll be looking at those tenths very closely. I agree with Conor. He's not going to be staying there. But you say you talked to him on Friday. Obviously, we're not going to pry into that private conversation, but what was his demeanor to you like?
I mean, honestly, Daniel's always been cool. We spent a couple days. He's got a place in L.A., and my girlfriend lives in L.A., so I spend a lot of time out in L.A. now. And so, we spent a bit of time in the preseason, had some dinner out there, and I mean, the guy's always positive. I think, we talked a lot about, IndyCar and because I had just done the Daytona 500 and NASCAR stuff. And, You know, I think he's in an interesting place in life, right? He's accomplished a lot, but he wants to obviously be competing for world championships, competing at the top level. And, you know, Daniel hasn't forgot how to drive. You know what I mean? Like, the guy definitely still knows what's going on. But yeah, he was super pumped to be going to Hungary. I mean, like I was talking to him about stuff, you know, that obviously is, you know, that some of the stuff that I have going on that that isn't public yet either. And so we're all kind of, you know, we're just chit chatting, but he seemed pumped. He seemed ready to go. And that's, you know, the guy is always a nice and excited and happy person. So I got to respect that. And as a driver who has sat out, anytime you get a chance, it doesn't matter what situation it is, when you miss it, it's amazing to get back in and that feeling of being excited to be a race car driver again.
And, you know, Conor, I don't want to embarrass you, but I think I put you in the same category as him, as somebody who does so much for the sport that they love. You started this conversation by saying you're a fan first and foremost, but it's guys like you and Ricciardo that make us come back on a Sunday. You know, we're never going to drive cars, but to have, you know, some good guys that we feel are just, you know, regular Joes, really, and yet they do this extraordinary astronaut-like job. And you and Daniel, I think, get the fans because you get them.
Yeah, and I mean, I appreciate that, and he's got trophies at the top level of Formula One. You know, I've got trophies from the top level here in IndyCar, and so we definitely have tried to obviously be successful racing drivers, but also, you know, do it for our sport too, and we have a passion for our sport. And I mean, I know I certainly have a passion for getting IndyCar out to more and more people and getting more respect that I think that it deserves. And, you know, I hope Alex Palou goes to F1 as soon as possible, because I think that would be great for our series. I think it would be great for the sport in general, because if Formula One continues to want to be like, we're the best, like everyone here is the best, well then, like, take the best and like let's see what everyone's got. You know what I mean? Like it's you've got some pretty incredibly talented drivers here in IndyCar right now, and you know, Alex is certainly on a bit of a hot streak here, and anyone like that deserves a shot in F1. I don't think there's any argument when you show that type of pace. There's no argument.
Yeah, I can't argue with that at all. I think he is the guy right now. I think he could step up. So, well, Conor, I told you 15 minutes. We're already at 20. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Thank you very much for jumping on. I know you just got off a plane, got back from Toronto. We love to have you on, and thank you very much for coming on, man.
Yeah, no problem, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, Conor, talk to you soon.
Thanks, Conor.
See you guys.
All right, let's get a quick break in. Your Sunday Night with Speed City back after this.